Good evening, everybody. It's October 1st, 2021. Obviously had a very strong push on Bitcoin last night. So we have step one done of what the bulls needed to do to prove themselves. In my opinion, we're not completely out of the woods yet, but it is a very, very good start. So I didn't think that they had it in them necessarily, but I'm happy to potentially be wrong here. We did finally have a pretty decent volume spike here as well, so that's great news that buyers are actually coming in strong with that volume now. So what we have here are still two possibilities, but the bearish one is getting weaker and weaker. It's kind of fading as we keep proving the bull's case here. So in the more bullish scenario, what we have is a bottom happening right here at the 39.6 low that finished a pretty nice ABC down. It definitely did look like it could have completed there. The only thing that was holding me back is that the C wave didn't really have a clean wave count down, but I can overlook that fact if the bulls keep pressing upwards here and prove it a little bit better. But we do have a nice ABC down, like I said, so that is potentially a complete wave 1 and 2 then on the larger scale. So that is very, very good news, and then potentially leads us up, begins us off on the next leg of this bull market up to that 80 to 100K range, or even a bit higher than that, potentially, depending on how this plays out. So let's talk about short-term, time frame here, what we need to see. So if I zoom in right to this region here, we have, let's focus on this red count that I have, 1, 2, here's the 3, 4, and 5. So this was, I was hoping that this was an impulse up, and it did kind of look like it. It was following the fibs fairly nicely. This giant drop off of that was, I wasn't quite sure if that was going to continue down in a more typical fashion. It would have broken that possibility. But obviously we had this very convoluted correction here, and I'm going to say basically that whole thing was a 2 correction, and corrective waves do not always form that nice ABC down. They sometimes take a more convoluted path, and there's many, many different paths they can take. So when you're in a corrective pattern, it's best to just kind of wait it out and see. So anyway, we still do need to see 5 waves up off of this low, and that should be our wave 3. And if we can get that, it's going to be a much greater probability then that the bearish case is done for. But still not completely out of the woods, because really this red count needs to complete. It's not just this little blue count here that we need to see complete, it's the red one that really needs to prove it. So, but that being said, I think we do have a little micro 1, 2 here, and I'm going to get rid of this ABC. Like I said, I had this orange zone here was the danger for it to be an ABC. That's typically where the C wave would have ended. Bitcoin obviously likes to make things pretty difficult, so it is still within the realm of possibility, I suppose, that we just topped in a C wave and we can die here. But I'm going to say that it's significantly less likely now, so I'm deleting that. This red box I had here as horizontal resistance, said we needed to get it through that, which we have done as well. And we came up here in the red right about to the 1.236, which is precisely where you would expect a 3 wave of the 3 wave to go. So that is all looking pretty good at the moment. Whoops, I'm trying to get rid of this orange circling I did here. All right, so what we need to see is for 4 to hold this 764 here, ideally at about 45,245. And if we break down below this 618 at 44,379, that's going to be a strong warning sign that we are not necessarily continuing higher. It could, even if we break that 618, it still could be making a diagonal upwards in a less bullish fashion, something along those lines. I would not want to see that really, because we really should have a pretty strong impulse here to start off our wave up to to 80 to 100. A diagonal really wouldn't do it sufficiently, probably. So ideally we hold that 764 there, and we can get potentially a little bit more of a target here if I do a fib from 3 to 2, and let's make that a different color, like yellow. All right, so this then gives us an ideal box to hold, actually a bit higher than that, right around here. So if we can get, this would be the most bullish case, if we can just get a shallow pullback here to 46.2 to 47.2, anywhere in that $1,000 range. If that pullback holds there, that would be the ideal situation. If that fails, we can still hold this red 764 down here at 45.2, and that would be okay as far as the higher time frame or higher degree wave goes. That would be okay. But ideally, based on what we have right now, this lower time frame wave pattern, we should hold actually this upper box. But I'll keep both on there for now, and we'll see what progresses from there. And then the target for this, assuming we hold this upper box, is going to be actually the top end of this, so anywhere between 50 and 51 is the target box for that fifth of 3. Okay, so ideally we get up into the upper region of that one there. And then if we can do that, I'm going to get rid of this yellow fib now. Okay, so if we can do this right here, say we get to about 50.6, that is also a wonderful place. The 1.618 is where wave 3, which is this red 3, should typically go. So we're going to drag that up above 5, so that's where we really need to head. And then from there we should get a correction downwards, unless this extends, which it's possible it does. But once we get a top in 3, we should have a correction downwards. That at this point in time could be as low as 45,245. If we really get all the way up here to the top, I'd like to see really just the top of this range struck, so 46.6 should be the lowest that it goes after that. So from here we should see a pullback down to 46.6 or so, and then we'll need to see a final fifth wave up here to potentially 51.6 to 53.2, and based on where these are going, it really should be the upper end of that. So 53.2 is really the ideal place to go for this. And then from there, again, we'll get a pullback again. And then potentially that's another place to add. So, I'm already fully loaded on Bitcoin buys. As you know, I've got a 42.7K average entry on those buys, so I'm quite happy with that. I've not been willing to get into leverage on Bitcoin at the moment, and it's the weekend now, so probably not the best time to do that right now either, because anything can really happen on a weekend. But I would say potentially if we can get this box here and then strike somewhere around here, especially as this ABC plays out, if we can get a target there for a leverage long, I may go ahead and do that for this final move up. And then the next place I'd be willing to take a leverage long would be after 5 fully completes. Once we get this fully completed, then I would be willing to get leverage longs in on the next pullback here. And again, once we get, assuming we get an ABC that actually plays out nicely like this one did, we can get some tighter targets in there for leverage longs. Now that's assuming obviously that everything kind of plays out in a textbook manner, which it never does, but you know, we can always hope for that, and then if it complicates things, we can go from there. Any of these pullbacks, you know, fourth wave pullback, since 2 is so deep, we might get a shallow 4. That is very possible. It may even form as a pennant of some sort. You know, we can always have something like this form before it then proceeds upwards to 5. That would be fine actually for 4. You know, instead of going all the way down there, it would be here instead. So there's multiple different ways that that could play out, but you know, basically you always want to be prepared for this typical ABC down, which is kind of the standard corrective pattern. So, all right, I think that pretty much sums it up. Let me go quickly to the daily chart here just to show you all what I'm looking at on the higher time frame. So I'm actually going to drag this. I think the start of this should be back here. That was our low. So let me get that magnet on there so we can tighten these targets up. Magnet there and magnet to that low. Okay. Get rid of this orange drawing here. All right, so what we have hopefully formed here is a 1 and 2 off of these lows, which is great news. It should be potentially the start. If we can complete this here, we should be looking at the start of this larger move up into the higher regions. And really what we would like to see, based on this fib extension, I actually want to see this extend. So I just said down on the low time frame that our target is here, like 51 to 53. Ideally though, it would extend up here to the 618 at 57.6. It's not a complete disaster if it doesn't, of course, but ideally that's where the first wave off of the first wave in a third wave, right? Because we're looking at this here, this third wave. The first wave in that third wave ideally goes up to the 618. It is possible for it to go to the 382 and then hold the 236. That's potential there, but based on our low time frame, the target is more like this 0.5, which is not really a typical place, but I suppose that's a possibility as well, and then we'll just kind of deal with that. We may then get some lower targets up high here, potentially like the 1764, 115,000 instead of the 130 that this potentially plays out to. If we can get this 618 here. But in any case, you know, we just have to keep waiting. Once this first wave here fully forms, then we can get these higher targets nailed down a little bit better and get an idea of where to start taking some profits off. And this, as far as like the highest time frame that I've been tracking, this red zone right here was the ideal. 80 to 100K basically was the ideal place, but based on this 1 and 2 here, it may actually extend. That might just be the top of 3, and then we'll get a 4. So it's still a really, really good place to be taking a lot of profit off, and I will likely do that. I will probably take lots of profit off in that 80 to 100K range still, but we may get a chance then to load up again at around 72 and get one more push up here, somewhere between 115 and 133. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that as it progresses and go from there. All right, so I think that sums up everything from low time frame all the way up to that daily time frame with the higher targets. My stops on the Bitcoin buys are still at break even. If you want to put them in profit, this 618 it really shouldn't go below that 44.3. So you can certainly put your stops below that. But like I said, even if it drops below that, it does a diagonal then. The problem with diagonals is they're just less reliable. So, you know, it may still pump from there. So that's why I'm keeping mine personally at 42.7, which is my break-even point. For me, basically, I want to hold on to these pretty much long term up to that 80 to 100K range. And the only way that I want to stop out is if it really just ruins this setup completely and goes full bear on us and crashes through all of these and comes down here, and then I can try again to buy in lower. The bear case for this would be if we're doing a convoluted wave down. So if we get, you know, an ABC, but that's actually just a W. If you get 3 and then 3 up and then 3 down, you can get a WXY correction. So we could have A, B, C, we could have A, B, C, and we could have A, B, C down further into this box and still reach these 36K regions down here, 36, 35, something like that. It would be super annoying if it did that, but that is pretty much par for the course with Bitcoin. It likes to be super annoying. But just keep in mind, if we stop out break even and this comes down lower, I still view that as a buying opportunity. That's just an opportunity to buy lower in that 35 to 36 area, somewhere around there. So that's why I've got my stop at break even, because we are potentially going lower if this all breaks down. But even so, it'll just be a longer, more drawn out correction in a wave 2, in my opinion. All right, that video was longer than the normal one, so I apologize for that. But hopefully it was good information for everybody to know where we're going and know what parameters we need to look for. All right, everybody, you guys have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow.